What is missing about women in our history? That is the question that Dr. Rebecca Hall aimed to answer in this book, Wake, The Hidden History of Women-Led Slave Revolts. I'm Educator Barnes. I'm a former librarian, English teacher, literacy coach, and I love to read. I also host 4 book clubs online throughout the year, one per season. And currently, we are in the midst of our winter book club called For the Culture. For the Culture focuses on a different culture each year. This year, we are focusing on African American history. And my book club, we just wrapped up this book last night. This book is a graphic novel. I was a late bloomer when it came to reading graphic novels. I started reading graphic novels once I started teaching middle school English because I strongly believe that graphic novels are as good as any other book. But what I really loved about this book, in addition to the research that Dr. Hall did, are the illustrations from Hugo Martinez. Illustrations in a graphic novel are critical. They give you a secondary storyline that lifts up the story. And when you look through the pictures and how the pictures were drawn in this graphic novel, it gave additional layers to the story. For example, there's a part in the book where they're in church and you have someone sitting there reading and their book is upside down. And so without Dr. Hall immediately having to say that this person could not read, we could see it in the illustrations. The other creative element that Martinez added to this particular book was adding different books in the graphic novel. So there's a scene where there is a debate going on, and on the table is Booker T. Washington's book, Up from Slavery. And if you're looking at what's happening in the dialogue boxes, you can understand why that's there. Later in the book, there's the red book is lifted up. That's one of the books that's featured. And what I really loved about this story is that Dr. Hall is in this book. Now, first, when I started reading this book, I'm like, how is this going to go? Because I think we've all read books where the narrator or the writer is a little too involved in the storyline. And we're like, hey, get to the side, get back to the story. But actually, this worked really well for this book because what was important for Dr. Hall to explain to us, the reader, is why this story is now being uncovered. So you're following her as a researcher as she is trying to get the information she needs to craft this story and all of the barriers that she comes across. And she does an excellent job of explaining how history is subjective because there are people behind it and they are writing it, and how some historians, despite actual evidence, continue to write stories with a certain narrative. For example, that women weren't the ones leading some of these revolts, even though there was evidence to the contrary. So I really, really enjoyed this book. It is a quick read. My book club, this book has 10 chapters. We read 5 chapters one week. The second 5 chapters, the second week we read this, and most people in my book club read this book multiple times within the 2 weeks. I strongly suggest after you read it the first time, go back a second time and just read the pictures because there's so much you may miss when you're just reading all the bubbles, and you need to go back and look at the pictures. And I also appreciate how Martinez took the past and the present, and you could see it in one shot at times. So a great illustration, great story, great history that was brought to light because it was already there, and a good message because Dr. Hall has so many additional messages throughout the story. The importance of really looking at what's there, the importance of learning tough history because it informs who we are in the present, and how that informs, like, who's behind all these buildings and how cities were built, and how much this is embedded into our society. So if you're looking for an exciting book to read with awesome illustrations, I strongly suggest you check out Wake, The Hidden History of Women-Led Slave Revolts by Dr. Rebecca Hall and illustrated by Hugo Martinez. And I give this book a 5 out of 5.